Before we do dive in, I want to just really quickly talk about a go-to-market motion holistically. Your company probably has many types of go-to-market motions. Today, we're going to focus specifically, as I mentioned, on what this looks like with your Salesforce partnership. So here's a quick list of 10 for sake of time. We're not going to dive into all of these. We are going to kind of touch on many, but these are all super important. So we're just going to quickly dive in. And Allison, I'll go ahead and kick it to you.
Yes, thank you, Sam. So the first topic that we want to do a deep dive on is how to really create that joint go-to-market plan that includes goals and KPIs. And as you probably saw on the very first, on that previous slide, the very first one was the customer 360 narrative and how to tie back to it. So this is super important that when you're defining your go-to-market plan, figure out a way to have it tie back to the Salesforce customer 360 and how your narrative helps benefit that. So it's not only super important that you define what success means to you guys internally with these, but that you've also created this with your Salesforce partner team and that you have an idea of what's really going to drive that success and what those goals and KPIs are going forward. So one of the techniques that we use internally at Salesforce that I'm sure many of you guys have heard before is our V2 MOM. That's visions, values, methods, obstacles, and measures. And it's a really great way to tie all of this back to it. So the most important in all of this is, what is your vision? How did you decide to become a partner on the App Exchange? And how are you going to tell the story of the customer 360 to really create that vision for them? This will really help you narrow down what your focus is, and to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success by not trying to kind of boil the ocean. So what else you're going to want to do is, with your Salesforce partner team, if you have one, is really set those goals as reach, but also realistic, right? What are the methods that you want to use to get there? Is that, driving a certain number of enablement sessions to educate the Salesforce field on your product and how you tie back to the customer's 360? Is this all about educating our partner teams and figuring out how you tie into the C360 from a partner perspective? Is this just meeting with sales leaders to help them better understand what you guys do and when to bring their teams in? There's a multitude of ways that you can do this, but I think it's really important that you create these methods and that you have tactical measures to go along with them so that you can define success. Sam, anything that you would touch on this one?
Yeah. So first of all, absolutely agree with everything you just talked about. And you kind of touched on the internal team at Salesforce of, as a partner, how do you build this go-to-market plan and, include your Salesforce team and your V2 mom. I would also say this should be a conversation that's happening with your internal teams as well. So for sure, your executive leadership team should be fully bought in and aligned on this V2 mom. Why do they think you should have a partnership with Salesforce? Are you aligned on kind of the goals and what does success look like within that partnership? Making sure that those KPIs are agreed upon. If there are specific resources that are needed from teams outside of yours, does the leader from that group understand kind of what those resources are, what the expectation of their teams are, and how are we metricing internally to make sure that this is successful? So, if you run partnerships, it's a team sport. And so making sure that everybody's very aligned on what that looks like is super, super important. Secondly, I would really lean in on messaging here. So, understanding what that joint value proposition is so important, as you kind of touched on, Allison. But there are a ton of different personas that you're going to be interacting here as you go to market with Salesforce. So obviously the end customer is the ultimate goal. But as we're starting to build out these plans, you mentioned enablement sessions with the Salesforce field. And so breaking that down even further, what's in it for the Salesforce AEs? How should they be talking to their customers about that? How does that messaging differ from the SEs and kind of like what the technicality of the product that you're bringing to market is? And so just understanding that there are nuances to this messaging, and it's often not the same that your marketing team has put the messaging out on the website. It's more succinct. We have to talk about those personas, and we have to bring Salesforce into the picture.